Hi,
once
Dan.
again.
How are you this morning?
Good, good, Bob. Great to be with you, folks. Banter, we were doing banter with Bob and Dan, but we're doing a few special editions because of my friend and a talented storyteller. That's right, storyteller. He's an author, but great authors, are great, even better storytellers. So today, I thought, hey, Bob, let's talk about maybe three of your books, just kind of short overview. But for those who don't know Bob, he's written, gosh, I think close to 30 books, probably 20 of them are business management and marketing books by his years in Silicon Valley as an executive on some boards there and working with entrepreneurs. And gosh, I can't keep track of how many. It's up close to 10 fiction, of which we're going to talk about three now. So, Bob, when did you first? But in this, when did you first start? I think, gosh, it's been about 20, 25 years since you first wrote books.
Yes. I actually started out by more or less recording my experiences as an expert witness. I've been testifying in court for over 30 years. And I kept track of all my testimonies and who I worked with and what some of the issues were. And I wrote a book on that. It's not one we'll be discussing today, but that's a very factual book that's available. And I just
Yeah.
released that about a month ago. So I've got factual books and then I've got novels. My novels are based on truth, but have some fiction. So the ones we're going to talk about today are all based on truth. And I can go over that and then I can talk about how we move from truth to, let's say, the fiction components of the books.
Yes, yeah, that's great. Yeah, the one you were referring to that we're not going to talk about is Word Wars, which if you're watching this, you can also check on this Zip Daniels Media, and you'll see a Word Wars
Yeah.
little deeper dive that talks about what Word Wars is. But today, in fact, as you were talking about great stories that have to do with engagements that you are asked to be involved with. The first one I always fascinated with is probably because I graduated with a 2.2 GPA and didn't do very well on my testing, but I have accomplished a few things in life. But the Brain Brokers, folks, you see it there here behind me on the screen, the middle book, the Brain Brokers. And it's a fascinating and true, based on
Yeah.
basically true. So, Bob, tell us
Sure.
about the Brain Brokers.
The Brain Brokers was one of my most exciting books to research, and it starts with something that a lot of people don't know. But after World War I, America was concerned about um, uh, whether or not we had the smartest people in the world. Some people thought the Germans were smarter than we were. This is like 1920, 1921. So they found a guy. His name was, and I may not be pronouncing this correct, but his name was Louis Terman. And they asked him, and they gave him $125 million, by the way, which was a lot of money in early 20s. And
Wow.
remember, now, this is over 100 years ago.
Wow.
What they wanted him to do was study children and find out how intelligent children lived, worked, and thought. Remember, there wasn't LSATs and all the scores for college entrance that we have today. We didn't have them in 1920. So what did he do? He got on the phone. He was in California. He got on the phone and he called all the high schools in California one at a time. And he spoke to the principal. And he said, "Give me the names of 5 of your smartest kids." Now, there was no test to determine that. So he relied on the principal. Now, he got the names. Now, he started following these kids. Now, let me stop for a second. The average age of the children that he got was 11 years old.
Wow.
So he started following them. And every 10 years, he would go out to these children. There literally was several hundred of them, and ask them a certain list of questions, like what their job was, what their college education was, how long they've been married, very specific questions. How often do you have sex with your wife? Do you cheat on your wife? Whole series of questions. Now, every 10 years, he published the results. So literally, you can go on Amazon as early as 1950 and get a book about 4 inches thick. That's published anonymously, so you don't know who the students were, but you can see the results. So The foundation of the book is about the analysis of smart children. Now, if you were to go to Stanford University, go to the campus, you'd see two buildings, one named after Lewis Terman and one named after his son, because obviously he started in 1920. But you'll never can see copies of, you can never see a list of who actually they talked to, because that's confidential. And the other problem was that it was 1920, and the list of people they worked with, they were all white. There weren't a lot of Asians over here in school. There weren't a lot of other types of people from other countries in school. So it was all white. So in some respects, if you read his results, it's biased toward white children. Now, remember, every 10 years, he did this big analysis. Now, what I did was take his foundation. Let me add one more thing. Hewlett-Packard was a big company in California. So in the late 30s and early 40s, and by the way, what I'm telling you now is almost all true. In the late 30s, early 40s, America would call him and say, hey, federal government would call him and say, hey, we need some smart people to work on some project. In one particular case, they said, we need smart people to develop radio technology so we can communicate with our military on the ground. Those two people were Hewlett and Packard, which became a very famous large company in California. So the studies are ostensibly attributed to starting more than 200 companies, because people would call him and say, hey, give me the name of 5 smart people, and he had them. Now, eventually, it was replaced by LSATs and SATs and different types of techniques. Now, get on to the book. So the book starts out with a foundation of truth. That's it. And everything I just mentioned, for the most part, is absolutely truthful. Now, what the book starts to grow on is...
Wait a second. I got a question. So those people that he studied over that time span of 70, 80 years were not revealed, but somewhere in California, it sounds like, there might be a grandson or a son or a daughter or a granddaughter or somebody that says, hey, my dad once told me he was studied by this Lewis Terman. Wouldn't that be interesting if somebody watching this and they'd reach out to you at Web Talk with Bob and say,
no, you're right. No list of their names is ever reported, but their theory, and this is what goes on in the book, a grandson finds a list of people in an old suitcase in his grandfather's house. And this happens to be his grandfather kept a list of all the people that he knew were involved in the study.
Okay. Or so getting to it. Okay.
Because I kind of believe that fundamentally those people are known. There's a list of those people somewhere, right? And the other part of it is that America now starts to recognize that one of their big assets is intelligence, smart people. So later we have the MCAT and the CAT and the LSAT and the college entrance exams.
Yes.
So some parts of the government started keeping track of everybody that scored perfect scores. Now there's roughly 400 people every year that score perfect scores on their college entrance exams.
On the ACT and the SAT. Wow.
Pardon me?
400 on the ACT and then the SAT, right?
Yeah, I don't know what they call it now, but that's what they used to call it, right? ACT and the SAT. And the government tracks those people. This is how the book goes.
Yeah.
And it makes sure that those people go to work for American companies. Now, foreign companies want to get those people to work for them. And America wants those people to work for government agencies. For example, in the book, and this is partially true, a person goes to interview with Google. And while they're there, the Google president gets a call from the chief of staff of the United States government, says, do not hire this person. And the Google person says, why? This is a great person. We want this person to go to work for Lawrence Livermore Labs. Lawrence Livermore Labs is a government research activity in California. They want the smart people to go to work in government research positions like Lawrence Livermore Labs.
Wow. Like so he gets a call. So he picks up the phone and it's the government.
No, yeah, it's actually the chief of staff for the government. And they had found out this guy was being interviewed because they track these people that score perfect scores. They
This is
track
a
them.
movie. This is a movie. This is a conspiracy theory
Well,
movie.
it's a great movie because we all know that we want all the smartest people to be here in the United States. We don't want them to work here and then go to work for somebody in China or
Yeah,
India. It's hard
China,
enough to keep them here. So we
Iran.
have to do special things to keep them. That's what the book's about. The book is about brain power, how it started, over 100 years ago, how it evolved to where we track all of the smartest people in the United States.
Ah, so the title, The Brain, boy, that's just very interesting. But you will want to
Yeah,
get this, folks. You can go to Amazon, Robert J.
yeah,
Sherwood. I think there's another Bob or Robert Sherwood out there. It's
yeah.
Robert J. Sherwood, The Brain Brokers. If you think about it, the broker is almost like a real estate broker or a stock broker, but this time it's the mind. It's
Yeah.
the genius minds. And we tickled them with that, but I don't know. Well, I think what we should do, unless you got something, the last thoughts on the brain broker, and we'll move on to Pandora's Prisoner, which is another great, amazing story.
Well, the last thought on the brain broker, they'll move to Pandora's prisoners, that there are companies that actually get the names of all these people that score perfect scores and try to position them and get paid for that big money to position them in foreign corporations.
Ah, so right
And
now,
that's
somewhere in
that's
China.
why it's called the brain brokers, because there are, and one of the brokers in the book is actually on the island of Greece, and he tracks all these people and he sells their names and their resumes to foreign corporations who then approach them to get hired. That's the brain brokers. It's a very exciting book, and you realize it's like many of my books like this. The foundation of the book is absolutely truthful.
Yeah.
Now,
And you've
you
just
ask
spun it
about
up in a story. There again, that word story. You've created a story out of something that was basically true. But go
yeah,
ahead with
it's a
Pandora's Prisoner.
yeah, and frankly, it might all be true, but I don't have as much proof for the other part as I do as I sit here with you. I don't even know what your what's your benefit from those.
Well, I just know I liked it because just to know that, as my friend the late Zig Ziglar used to say, I was in the half of the class that made the top half possible. Zig used to always say that. So,
And when's the other book or the other what's the next one?
Pandora's Prisoner. Pandora's Prisoner. That's a catchy title. Everybody going Pandora's Box. This is Pandora's Prisoner.
Hmm. So in that particular uh, I actually I've written so many books, so I forget the name. So the Pandora Prisoners is actually about uh, how how people are discussed in a book. Like Pandora's Prisoner is about people that are talking about stories. In this particular book, it's more about how
Isn't this the book about the gentleman that was sick and and he found a way to get healed, as I recall?
well, yeah, he gets sick and he works on methods of getting healed. Who is Pandora? Pandora is the one god who, when was available to get released, was kept didn't get released.
Okay.
And the reason is because the people who were releasing all the different people from the box thought that Pandora was not ready to talk to people. Plus, Pandora believed that that releases shouldn't be total revealed. So in Pandora's Prisoner, there's book reveals that are made, and I don't know if I'm making all this sense or not, but it's a story about how book stories or obsessions with books, and about people that are very good at that, how those things get revealed. And they're called Pandora's Prisoner because Pandora makes them a prisoner of what they're revealing. I know I'm not making much sense now, so ask me another question.
Yeah,
Maybe I can.
that's kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
intriguing though. That one was as far as in your timeline of books, well, that was like your second or third novel that you wrote, I believe. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. It was, and
Yeah.
it was a rather exciting book uh, because of Pandora, and because if you were listening to somebody else, then never be a prisoner of Pandora. So Pandora is in charge of how that book evolves. It's really kind of an exciting book, and deals very specifically with the truth, or people what we accept to be the truth, and how the truth is evolved into the medical world and healing people.
Yeah. You know, you and James Patterson, the famous, I don't know how you two could keep track of all the books that you wrote, and because there's so many books out there. Robert J. Sherwood on Amazon, folks, because Bob Sherwood, my friend, tells stories, and he is a great storyteller. And the great thing is your life experience from California. You spent time in Europe. You've spent time in South Africa. You've spent even time in Iran, which is in the news quite a bit lately. You were in Iran, is that right? In like the
Sure.
late 70s before the
Yeah,
big trouble?
I've traveled around the world from Johannesburg, South Africa to Iran, and many of those thought processes that I developed there are in the books. You know, when you jump back to Pandora's Prisoner, you realize that a lot of the things in that book we believe are true. We believe when we listen to uh, old people, or people talk about things that happened in the past as being true. So in Pandora's Prisoner, that's it. Pandora is a person, or we will, and she has prisoners. And the prisoners are things she thinks about and reads and talks about. So I recommend Pandora's Prisoners to anybody who wants a thought provoking book.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe it, but once you start reading it, you'll get sucked into it, because it's
Yeah.
based on truth. It's based on a truthful story that I experienced in my life.
And you kind of tell the story. So the next book I want to move to, and this is self-revealing. You know, it's I'm not one who sits down and reads novels. I read a lot of self-help books and personal development books. And I've started some novels in my life, but the first novel I ever read cover to cover completely,
Mm-hmm.
and it kept my interest and my wow, what's going to happen next, is one we're going to talk about next. In my opinion, the PM Note. Now, what a title! In my opinion, the PM Note. And the important thing about this that you're going to talk about is has to do with America, has to do with politics, technology, finance, all the things we talk about today. Tell us about your first novel there, in my opinion.
It was the most exciting novel that I ever wrote, and it's what generated my total interest in stories. So, for example, we just mentioned uh, Pandora's Prisoner, based on truth. The book about the brain brokers, based on truth. In my opinion, is based on a truthful situation, right? And it's based on the fact that how people can get a hold of copy machines, and when something's being copied, send it somewhere else. That's the fundamental technology involved. So, for example, in this particular case, the guy who runs Alaska, who's the governor of Alaska, decides he wants to, hey, not be to be not part of the United States again.
He wants to secede from the
He
Union.
wants to secede, and that's the fundamental thing that's going on here. He writes a letter to the president of the United States saying, "I'm seceding from the United States."
Yeah.
And why he wants to do that? Well, first, there's some economic reasons. There's oil wells everywhere. Alaska gets about 1 penny per gallon, and the oil well producers get $80 a barrel. So this guy, the governor of Alaska, says, "I want to get a lot of that money." So he basically secedes. He tells he joins OPEC, right? And he tells the government of the United States, "I want you to protect me the same way you protect OPEC." And they say, "Well, we're going to attack you because you can't secede." And he says, "Well, I've already seceded. I've already joined OPEC. and I've sent your military home. If you want them to stay, they have to defend me. The same way you put military in other countries to defend them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting situation because the government is saying you can't secede. And he's saying, I already seceded. I'm not part of you anymore. I mean, there's no fundamental reason why any state can't just say, hey, I'm not part of the United States, period.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because when you wrote this book was right smack, it's been 20 plus years ago, talking about Alaska. And Sarah Palin, who was the governor
Yeah,
of Alaska, was in
yeah,
the news at that time. She was
sure,
very dynamic, or she went on to be a vice presidential candidate and
sure,
didn't
right.
win. But she all about Alaska. People were all interested in Alaska, and she was promoting it. And so we got politics we
Well,
talk about
sure.
every
You
day.
remember Alaska became a state because we moved people up there. Now he asked to vote, do you want to become a state? Well, what do you think the people that were lived in Alaska all their lives voted for? Not to become a state. But now there's enough other people up there that voted to become a state, and by a fairly small margin.
Yeah.
So what, it's not impractical, unusual, or even unacceptable that they would decide, hey, we don't want to become a state anymore. Why? Why should they become a state? What do they get from us? No. What do they give from us? Oil.
Yeah.
Up
A
in
lot
the
of
northern
natural
part of
resources.
Alaska are major oil supplies. And instead of getting a penny a barrel, they're going to get $50 a barrel.
Yeah.
And they're going to handle their own military. And because they joined OPEC, they get protected by the United States. That's what they're saying. The United States is saying, we're going to come in and take over the government. And they're saying, no, we're a member of OPEC. You have to defend us. Any
Yeah.
military here, people have to defend us.
And
So you
the
can see the fundamental arguments that are going on. And then there's some side arguments going on. People are stealing some of the information from the Alaskan, but the governor of Alaska is a very smart guy. He's well educated. It actually comes up in other books later on, but
yeah,
it's
this
a
is
very
interesting.
exciting book because it deals with issues. And there's actually been two states that have tried to secede, Texas and California, and they all just dropped the ball. But there's no reason why any state can't secede from the union. They can just say, I'm not part of the union anymore. That's
Yeah.
the concept of the book. I have people say, well, that's impossible. I said, no, they became a state through voting to
Voting
join the
for it.
United States. So they become not a state by the same thing.
Let me ask my friend Google assistant hey Google, what's the population of Alaska? In oh my gosh. As 2026, the population of Alaska is 738,000 people. Alaska doesn't even have a million. So
There you go.
if if you got 400,000 people, well, first off, if you got half of them to vote, you got 400,000 to vote. You just have to have 201,000 to secede
Well,
from the union.
the governor of Alaska in the book, who I've now forgotten his name, will come to me in a minute. He sold the idea on the fact that he says to Alaskans, if we keep all the money from the oil exploration, none of you have to work anymore. See, Alaska, even in those days, was getting the people were getting small amounts of money, $100, $200, right? But if they take and keep all the oil and sell it at $70 a barrel, the Alaskans would get $40,000 or $50,000 a person. They don't have to work anymore.
Right?
So that's kind of the concepts that the governor of Alaska is selling the Alaskans.
Yeah. And the other
The,
part,
the, the plot gets a little more complicated in that we have people from Germany to get involved and people that steal. Every time Alaska is ready to make a press release, it gets stolen. So people act on it early on. If you know the press release is about to announce something that would drive the price of oil down, and so you go ahead and short sell oil when you get a copy of that press release, it can make a lot of money.
and
And this
isn't that
German couple makes millions of dollars like that.
now, isn't that interesting that time and this repeats itself because our president of the United States has Truth Social, and what is he doing? He's asking, and it's doing it. Wall Street on his Truth Social posts, which all the news agencies and everybody has to
Yeah.
watch to get their news first. He sells for $100,000 a month access an API code to
There you go.
get
Yeah.
7 minutes early. So Wall Street knows what President Trump has said 7 minutes before the rest of the world, the news media or us, we know. So there it goes into making money. But that's I remember in the book, that's very intriguing because it has some spy, it has some,
Yeah.
some
Now,
real global
sure.
implications.
Now, let me kind of summarize all three books. And all the books I wrote, what I'm going to say this applies to. They all open with the foundation of truth. The brain brokers all start with the foundation of truth, right?
Yeah.
Something that literally happened, that's truthful, that a person who's reading the book can check, right? Can say, oh, yeah, that really happened. And then it moves away from that foundation to the impact of that foundation on society, right?
Yeah.
Brain brokers, once the information gets released on that, Pandora's prisoner, and then of course, in my opinion, the PM note. So all those deal with factual things that occur. So when you're first reading these books, you'll read the first couple of chapters, and if you check, you'll find out they're accurate. And
Yeah.
then the exciting thing for me is when I slowly move from a foundation of absolute accuracy that you can check into the possible output or outcome or impact of that, right?
Right.
Right. There's no reason why Alaska shouldn't secede from the Union. As you say, they have less than 1 million people. They probably generate billions a year in oil sales.
Yes.
Who owns that? Well, the people of Alaska own it. You know, most of the 800,000 people you're talking about are indigenous. They're not people that have moved there from other states. And these people in the 50s, when it was being voted on, objected to becoming a state.
Yeah.
But because of the way the voting occurs, if we move people up there and they take a residency, let's assume we move 50,000 military up to Alaska and they make Alaska their resident, they get to vote then.
Yeah.
So we got all these things going on. It's very complicated, and I explore all those things in my book. So if you're reading my book, or any of these books we're talking about, the fun thing is for the reader to figure out, is Sherwood now telling the truth about this? Did he make this up, or is this factual? And I like my readers to have that in their brain. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And have them think about, wow, this is factual. Oh, this may not be factual. Because the movement from a factual statement to what the impact of that is quite spectacular. If I know the names, addresses, and phone numbers of every person who got 1,600 on the LSATs, perfect scores, if I know that, that's an asset. But you know something? It's very hard to find that out. You can't call anybody and get that information. The newspapers, like, for example, the Kansas City or the Omaha newspaper, they only publish the high scorers in their area.
Yeah.
So getting that list is money. And that's what happens in the brain brokers. Somebody gets that list. So we know the list is available.
This is so fascinating because all of these books have ties to this day in 2026.
Sure,
in my opinion, what we just talked about, getting information ahead of time so that you can make money. That talks about that. And the brain brokers, who isn't talking about the people that invented AI, or that AI is the news. The smartest people in the world are making money, and you talk about the beginnings of how those were tracked. And in Pandora's Prisoner, healthcare, MAHA, make America healthy again.
Out the college entrance exam tests. You realize that some of those tests now are being eliminated. They eliminate the test. Because why? Because if we give the tests, we know who scores high. And that is valuable information.
Yes.
Very valuable, right? And people like Google or Apple, they want to know who the perfect scorers are. They want to hire those people.
Yes.
So you've got the government now doesn't want to provide those lists anymore. Plus, unfortunately, now if we jump 100 years forward. Remember, the original book was based on looking at young white people in California schools with the average age 11 years old. Now, our schools, our colleges are full of Asians, people from other countries. I mean, Germany, France, American. So it's much more difficult to relate the actual college student to America, since many of them come from other countries.
Yeah. These are all fascinating. Folks, you know, you've heard this saying, I didn't invent it, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But people
Yeah.
buy from stories. And Bob cares enough to share his life experiences in stories. Okay.
These
and
are
people
stories.
love
That's
good
why
stories.
I tell people, look, I am a storyteller. There are better writers, I think, than I am. But I don't think there's better storytellers. And I do not think that there are better books that are based on better stories.
I don't know. I think you're an
based on a
undiscovered
foundation of truth.
I think you're an undiscovered talent.
Pardon
me? I think you're an undiscovered talent in what I've read. And, you know, I've worked alongside with you in some of these books to kind of read them while you were writing them. And I think somewhere out there in Hollywood, somebody's watching and they need a movie. You know, we didn't talk about Dave Dawson, who is a fictional character that weaves through all your books. He's kind of like a Jack Ryan. And so if there's somebody wants, who's the next Jack Ryan, David Dawson by Bob Sherwood is. Folks, make sure you know on Amazon, Robert J. Sherwood. And, you know, if you need a good story that's based on truth, that has ties to current exciting things going on, you need to check out these books. Bob, anything in closing? You kind of wrapped it up there, but you know, I know you got some other books. You got Word Wars, which is a great book about courtroom experts.
Yeah.
Which, if somebody out there is an expert, you want to go back, as I said, and watch our interview on that. And you got a couple other books. I know you're in the works. So
yeah, we do. But I can tell you that fundamentally my books are stories based on truthful foundations. And it's up to the reader to determine where the truth is left and it moves into the hypothetical.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, my hypotheticals are all reasonable. Nothing is far-fetched. Yeah. Everything is possible. If you read them, you'll say, gosh, I believe this. It can happen. Well, sure. And some of it is already happening.
Yep. And in this right now, as we close, I know that somewhere across the world, somewhere in America, somebody's sitting in their chair. They may be retired, or they may be in technology, or they may be in politics, or they may be in healthcare, and they're going, I need a good book to read, just at night to read a good book. I need a good story. And it isn't about books, it's about stories. I need a good story to read. That's why we've been talking about this for the last few minutes.
And you nailed it. This is about good stories, believable stories, truthful stories in the first few chapters. And then I expand on the impact of that story on the United States.
Yep. Folks, if you want to get a hold of Bob, you see here on the screen, you can reach him. His website's webtalkwithbob.com. Bob and I used to have a radio program, went out there nationally. Gosh, that's been 20 years ago. And we talked about technology things, webtalkwithbob.com then, or to reach him, Gmail, you see on the screen, webtalkwithbob@gmail.com. And thanks for listening. Be sure to go listen to that other one on Word Wars, and we'll be back with more. We got a lot of books to talk about. Bob, thanks for taking the time. And
a lot of stories.
Lots of stories. Yeah, get those stories. Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everybody.